It doesn't take a genius to see that men and women are biologically different. Women possess more feminine qualities, whilst men are more masculine. Women have more body fat and less muscles, whilst men have less body fat and more muscle. Men are generally physically stronger than women. If you compare one man and one woman who are of the same height and weight, the man will typically be stronger. So, in the strength department, men win by far. What about natural abilities? Men carry sperm cells whilst women have eggs. Women need men's sperm in order to get pregnant. Men cannot get pregnant, it is physically impossible. I can't believe I'm saying this in today's scientific era, but only women can get pregnant. Men do not have the biological components that would allow them to put a bun in their oven, so to speak. Men have more testosterone than women. There are some exceptions, but the vast majority of men have more testosterone and women have more estrogen. Women have better memories than men. Women have periods, men don't. Women graduate more than men in colleges and universities. They do better than men, but that could also be to do with how boys are raised by their parents. Men are able to handle greater workloads. They are able to work for longer. There are more men in prison, and the major factor seems to stem from single mother households. That does not mean all boys raised by single moms will go to prison, but it is a correlation that is relational to kids' upbringings in single mother households. Children need their fathers. It also probably means they will do better in single father households instead, according to recent data. But I want to be fair with the data. This video is not to bash single parents or women in general. What we want to get to is the differences between men and women. Men have XY chromosomes and women XX. I've given a brief outline on our biological differences. We are obviously different in the biological sense, but similar in other ways. I've heard something strange on YouTube with regards to male and female promiscuity. It goes something like this. The difference between you and me is I go into 100 women, whilst 100 men go into you. That begs the question, how does men going into 100 women make sleeping around any better? You still act like a male hoe. You're still doing what promiscuous females do. There is no justification for your actions, but depending on your worldview, then you probably are acting consistent. For example, you might be an atheist or agnostic, and you see no problem with spreading your seed around, having fun with every Janet and Jane you can get your hands on. You might say you're doing what's natural to men, but if by natural you mean you are doing what's on your mind, following your desires to sleep around, then women who also follow their desires to sleep around lead to you both having the same issues if it feels as natural as eating. As a man, it is not simpish for me to say to my fellow men, if you got problems with single mothers, you sleeping around being promiscuous is one surefire way to create them, especially if you end up running away from your responsibility as a potential father. But not just that, sleeping around even whilst unprotected leads to STDs. You both therefore got the responsibility of controlling yourselves. Do both men and women have the same innate value? Depending on your worldview, as a Christian, both men and women are made in the image of God. So, yes, in terms of innate value, most definitely. In a naturalist worldview, innate value is an illusion. It doesn't really exist, nor can be accounted for. The same for things like human rights. What value is a human being under the naturalist, atheist worldview? It is what you make it to be, meaning subjective. What standard then are you using to say the opposite sex should be responsible for their actions? Trapping men through pregnancy or domestically abusing your wife? I hope you get the point. When I listen to these discussions on Fresh and Fit, etc., that constantly trash women, what is their grounding for this type of behavior? I used to be heavy into the men going their own way movement, aka MGTOW. And don't get me wrong, there are variations in this red pill sect, but to the ones who are MGTOW, who create constant videos trashing women for sleeping around, initiating divorce, or for ending up single parents, do you hold yourselves to the same standard? Even though you are living your life woman free, are you also constantly sleeping around, possibly creating single mothers in the process? On the Fresh and Fit podcast, Fresh got an Asian woman pregnant, and he said on audio that she should get an abortion. Is that the kind of man you want to look up to? He's a true chump, regardless of his financial gains. Unless you believe embryos are not human, but are likened to a bunch of cells, in which case you're behind on the science. What standard are you using to say that women who initiate divorce out of X amount of years of marriage to receive half the man's assets is wrong? It is survival of the fittest, after all. I believe it is wicked from a Christian perspective because these people are not bearing the image of God in those moments of sin. But what say you? The same can be said for people who start OnlyFans to make a living, even corn. Again, these are shameful things that denigrate women to objects of lust and nothing more. Andrew Tate had no problem self-snitching, saying he gets his webcam girls to take every penny from these losers who take the time out to look and talk to these webcam hookers, trying to get off with someone who works behind the screen for a living. What standard are you using to say they shouldn't do it? It is, after all, their lives. I'm sorry I went off the hook there, but I think it's important I lay it out for you. Men and women are different in biology, but are equal in innate value depending on your worldview. Other worldviews like the Abrahamic faiths, excluding Islam, could give a grounding for innate value, whilst others cannot. The question is, which do you choose and which makes the most sense? I'll leave that for you to decide.